who's got the oh, okay. So now we are being recorded, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Well, let's go ahead and this opportunity will introduce our speaker. So Patricia, would you please come to the podium and introduce our speaker today?
Success is not a lucky break. It is not the result of incredible talent. Success is a recipe. When carefully followed, you get a predictable outcome. Many successful people have developed techniques that work for them. Most don't realize true success needs our strongest ally. What do truly successful people know that others don't? That's what we are going to hear. Last time Claudette addressed the Golden Gate Breakfast Club, she told us the story behind her speech that helped her beat out more than 35,000 contestants in the Toastmaster World Champion of Public Speaking. Claudette went from an abusive childhood to a successful career with Silicon Valley startups. During that journey, she used the information she will share to make that transition. She wants to help you discover your strongest ally. So please help me welcome speaker, speech coach, Frippette, and Golden Gate Breakfast Club member, Claudette Good O'Neill. Take it away.
Thank you, Patricia. Are we okay? Yes. Thank you, Patricia. I sound better when you tell me about me than I actually do when I tell me about me. I want to apologize to people as I'm speaking. I have a new pair of glasses on and they keep slipping the wrong way, so I may have to adjust them. Wouldn't it be nice to have a motivation coach available to you 24/7? The SMART process is great for managing your goals, but it doesn't guarantee motivation. And you need motivation to produce successful results. When we feel motivated, it feels great. But trying to get motivated or working to stay motivated is sometimes exhausting. If you had a motivation coach, that someone who could help you set yourself up for success all the time, life would be a lot easier. But how much would a person like that cost? Well, the good news is you can get a coach like that for free. The even better news is you already have one. And that coach can be your strongest ally if used correctly. Your strongest potential ally is your brain. A little background. Your brain is made up roughly of 86 billion neuron cells and 100 trillion synapses, all dedicated to storing and retrieving information. You're already using this ability when you learn something new, experience an event, or try to memorize something, like a speech. Your brain also runs everything your body physically does or is capable of doing. Psychologists like to paint a picture of the brain as an iceberg with part of the brain on the top of the water and most of it underneath the water. And this works, well, it works well, except that most lay people decide that they control everything on top of the water, but they have no control over anything under the water. And that couldn't be a worse assumption. Your brain is so much more powerful than everything that we've already discussed. It is truly the highest performing computer that you can own. But like all computers, to communicate effectively with it, there are operating system rules and programming language that you must use. The bad news is that if you don't pay attention to the operating rules and the language, your brain can go from being your strongest ally to an enemy that can derail your progress and sabotage your success. The most important operating rule for your brain is that your brain has to make you right. It has to make you right. So be careful what you tell it. Let me give you some examples. Let's say I wake up in the morning and I have to get to work on time and I can't find my keys. And the longer I look for the keys, the more frustrated I get. And the more frustrated I get, I start talking to myself. And the dialogue could go something like this. Why am I so stupid? Why don't I put my keys in the same place? I mean, I have a place for the keys. Why don't I use it? I am so stupid. Now, by the time that I have told myself I'm so stupid, studies have shown that that day I will make more than my average number of stupid mistakes. Why? Because the brain has to make me right. Let me give you another example. Harry invited a group of us over for dinner, and I arrived early. And he said, "Get me the salt. It's on the second shelf in the pantry." I didn't really want to participate in cooking. And as I go into the pantry, I'm telling myself, I've never been here before. I won't be able to find the salt. And I look and I look. Finally, I say, "Harry, I can't find the salt." And Harry comes in, reaches right in front of my face and says, "What is this?" Why? Because my brain had to make me right. Maybe you've had this experience, albeit before GPS. You were going someplace new and you said, "I'll probably get lost." And then you got lost. A second operating rule is that the brain is driven to organize. It takes in facts randomly from the time we're born. A number sound, a letter sound, and later it puts them together. For instance, in kindergarten, a teacher might tell you about red, blue, green, and yellow. And then she might say, "These are colors." Later on your own, you see a color like lavender or turquoise, and you know that it's a shade different from the others, and so you realize it's a color. And your brain has helped you to organize that. But one of my favorite stories about the brain organizing something actually isn't even about a human. A young lady named Francine Patterson was doing a Stanford graduate project. Now, she had been a caretaker for a gorilla at the San Francisco Zoo named Coco. One day, she decided in her graduate project that she would train this gorilla to use sign language, and in fact taught Coco about 1,000 signs for everything normal: vegetables, fruits, home, sleep, all the words that you would normally have in a conversation. And also Coco could follow about 2,000 English spoken words. So one day she said to Coco, "Here," and she handed him a slice of watermelon. And she said to Coco, "What do you call this?" Coco's brain went to work organizing, and he came out with water fruit. Well, watermelon is a fruit, and it's full of water, and that is an excellent example of a brain organizing things for us. A third operating rule is your brain cannot tell the difference between reality and what you believe and what you're emotionally invested in. If reality and what you believe are in conflict, the brain will always defer to what you believe. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone where the two of you are going over facts, and there's a fact 1 and a fact 2 and a fact 3, and at the end of all of this collection, you come up with one opinion, and your friend comes up with what you consider an illogical opinion? Now, you both had the same number of facts. What happened? What happened is that your friend had a hidden belief that accepted and stored the information of the facts in a way that supported that belief. And whatever that belief was, caused him or her to skew that fact. Many arguments are the result of hidden beliefs. Now, people believe in affirmations, and affirmations can work for you very well. But belief is a big part of affirmations. For instance, if I say, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, my brain hears I'm not really happy, and I don't get one bit happier. There's another story I like to tell about belief being in control. When we were little, my sister and I were gymnasts. Well, in our teens, we did programs at hospitals, some USO programs. And one day we were doing some exercises with a group of other gymnasts. The idea was that some people were going to be on all fours and on top of each other to make kind of a pyramid. And those of us doing the exercise were going to leap over the group and roll when we landed. Now, several of them had done it successfully, and so had I. And Paulette, my sister, said, I can't do it. Now, I've always been the leader between the two of us, and so I said to her, yes, you can. And I'm giving her all this talk about, as a coach would, yes, you can, yes, you can. And so she agreed she would try it. And she leaped over beautifully and then went straight out on the mat, tearing the skin off on some of her face and her body. Why did this happen? Because she believed she couldn't do it. These are some of the basic operating rules. One language requirement is your brain only thinks in the present. Now, I know that some of you think, well, I plan for the future, but your brain looks at that as what you're doing in this moment. Your brain only works in the present. So if I say, I will stop smoking, my brain in effect says, well, will, that's the future. I'm not concerned with that, but how about a cigarette right now? Another language requirement is your brain tends to drop negative adverbs like don't, not, etc. Now, this is the time I want all of you to participate. So I'm going to ask you to follow my instructions very carefully and very completely. Everybody, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Do not think of a purple cow. Do not think of a purple cow. Do not think of a purple cow. What are you thinking about? Most of my audiences are thinking about a purple cow. What about you? Even though I told you not to think of a purple cow 3 times. If these concepts are new, you may be thinking that how the brain operates is a potential minefield of problems. But it's actually a map of how you can make your brain your strongest ally. Let's apply it to achieving a personal goal as an explanation. What is the first question you should ask whenever you're setting a goal or objective? Any 3-year-old can tell you, those of you who have grandchildren, any 3-year-old knows the first question. Why? 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 If you are starting a diet, trying to stop smoking because your doctor told you to, or you want to please somebody else, then you don't own the result. And owning the result, knowing why you want to achieve it, means you really believe in it. When you set a goal only because you want to please somebody else, somebody told you to do it, or you think you should do it, there is room when the going gets tough for you to say, I cannot do it. And remember, your brain is always driven by your beliefs. So there are some questions to help you with this why concept. Ask questions like, whose goal is it? Why do I want it? What changes for me when I achieve it? Are there other ways to affect the same change? And if so, why is this option better? These kinds of questions will help you understand your why and get it concretely into your belief system. Because what you believe in will affect whether or not your brain can become your strongest ally. After you've set your belief and the results you want, you need to ask and answer a second question. What are the initial challenges and their solutions that are associated with successfully reaching my objective? Now, there's a lot of business people in this club, and I know that you recognize this as a strategy often used, and you've probably used it yourself, to produce success. The reason that I mention it here is it also strengthens your belief and confidence that you can handle issues that come up and successfully reach your desired outcome. It will guarantee to your brain that your belief system is in order. This is critical if your brain is to become your strongest ally and your best motivation coach. Now, when you think of motivation, you need to plan for motivation. And planning for motivation is the step that brings together all of the things that the brain needs, all of the techniques that the brain needs to make it our strongest ally. There are 3 parts to motivation planning for this. The first is affirmations. We can plan for success through speaking and posting of affirmations all around us, so we're constantly recognized, constantly reminded of our beliefs and the things we want to achieve. The operating system of the brain requires that the affirmation must be about something we firmly believe in and are emotionally invested in. The language requirements demand that the affirmation be stated in the present and in the positive. If I am chronically late and I want to change that, I cannot use the affirmation either I will begin arriving on time, because that puts the brain in the future where it won't go, or I won't arrive late anymore, because the brain will drop won't and here arrive late and follow up, unfortunately, on that. A better version is, I love being on time, even if that is not currently the case, because the emphasis on love shows the emotional investment. A second component of planning for motivation is visualization. Let's suppose that you want to have more confidence when joining a group situation. Well, we don't have much problem with that in our club, but some people do. And people who have trouble joining groups should start visualizing themselves, entering the group and actively speaking to people with a smile on the face. At first, if you don't believe in your ability with groups, the picture that you form will be fuzzier, darker, or distant, and not too much color. In your visualization, you will work to make the picture clearer, brighter, closer, and full of color. Now you need to repeat this process, repeat it often, because you're building a picture of your belief. And you're building a picture of your belief that is stronger than the reality that you know. Here's the initial bad news. Remember the first operating rule of the brain? You know, the one, it has to make you right? if you are right, you don't need to change. So your brain will try to keep you right where you are. Now that's in conflict with where you want to go. But the brain has three ways of trying to keep you where you are. It will first seduce you into procrastination. That's exactly why procrastination occurs. Secondly, it will let you go at it half-heartedly, so your results are not the ones you wanted. Lastly, if you keep going, it will use something called creative avoidance. Like when you know you should be working on a report, you sit down at the computer and you suddenly think of something else you need to do absolutely right now. So you start working on that second thing, and your brain has won with creative avoidance. If you've ever thought that these behaviors were a weakness in character, you were wrong. They are the brain's attempts to keep you just the way you are because it has to make you right. But when you really believe in your goal, as we showed how to do earlier, and you state the affirmation in the present and positive, and you visualize where you want to be in clear, bright, close-up, and colorful pictures, you have created a dilemma for your brain that will make it your strongest ally. How? Your brain is now faced with the current reality of you and a stronger picture and belief of where you want to be. You have created the third component that creates motivation. And you will make your brain your best motivator because you've created a gap between reality and your belief that your brain cannot live with. Now remember, your brain is driven to organize, and you're going to use that. It will defer to your belief, and in the background, it will locate and start pointing out options and opportunities that you can use to take you closer to your goal. The brain recognizes that this is what you believe, this is what you see, this is your reality, but it will take you toward what you believe because it has to make you right. Your brain will be then working with you to push you forward towards your newly formed and strengthened belief. By the way, I'd like to take a little side note right now. We're all consumed with all these news items and the feelings about this pandemic. And it is a challenge. But it's a challenge your brain can help with. I know you're working hard to stay healthy and follow the medical advice. You're washing your hands for 20 seconds. You're practicing social distancing. You're wearing a mask. You're doing everything that the experts are telling you to do. However, the coronavirus has also created in many of us feelings of anxiety, frustration, and sadness. These are negative beliefs. And negative beliefs in our body create stress. Stress creates an increase in cortisol. And cortisol in our bodies creates an increase in body inflammation. And increased body inflammation compromises your immune system. So use the brain's capabilities, the ones we've discussed today, when you visualize yourself calm and handling all the current restrictions. You can decrease negative emotions and beliefs and make your brain a strong ally in keeping you safe. In closing, when you make your brain your strongest ally, you will find exactly what Patricia said in my intro. Success is not a lucky break. It isn't even the result of incredible talent. We've all seen talented people who fell by the wayside. Success is a recipe, and when carefully followed, a predictable outcome, because your brain is now your strongest ally. Thank you.
Well, that was fantastic. Everyone can, you know, I got to.
Great job. Fripp it, rule the world.
You know, it's I love hearing you, Claudette, because you bring out these ideas that I just forget about.
Well, they are good ideas, and many people don't realize the strength of what happens in your brain and how you can use your brain other than just thinking the way we think about using the brain.
Right.
Yeah. You know, one thing I do is I have a whiteboard in front of my desk, and I have a couple whiteboards. One I have kind of got my to-do list, but the main one I only put 3 things on there. You know, the 3 things I need to get done every day, and it's amazing how my mind wants to avoid doing those 3 things.
We've made a mistake for years of thinking those were character defects, but they actually are the brain trying to keep you where you are. And once you know how to get around it, the way we talked about today, you can actually make your brain your greatest motivator.
How do you think, like, people like, let's say, for example, Napoleon Bonaparte or Alexander the Great? I mean, what kind of self-talk were those guys doing all the time?
Well, they may have been a little bit narcissistic as well, and I don't get into behavior issues. But the very fact is that when you tell yourself, as Patricia does often, you said something about her ego, but actually that's an excellent process to stay ahead of the crowd. That's what she does. It works,
Yeah.
and she's using her brain to do it.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, you know, we're going to move over to the group chat. So if you have some questions, that's a great place to put them. I'll moderate that. We've got 5 minutes. So
Okay.
I think Betty had a question. Betty, would you like to go ahead?
Great, thank you. I'm exactly the person you're talking about. Thank you for the great presentation, by the way. I have a project I've been trying to work on literally for 3 weeks. And I sit down to do this project, and then I think of all these other little things I do first because I can get them off my list.
That's creative avoidance.
Exactly. So tell me what to do. I know you mentioned it, but can you just guide me again? I know my brain's trying to make me right, but I want to be.
So the visualization is very powerful. Mm-hmm. You need to visualize yourself already there, because the brain only works in the present.
Mm-hmm.
So you visualize yourself having achieved it, how good it feels, and you have to see that. When you visualize, close your eyes for a minute, and I don't know, you haven't said what the project is. Can you say, can you tell me what one of the projects is?
It's a marketing proposal for a U.S. Marshal.
Okay, all right. I want you to visualize you sitting at your computer and ideas are coming at you as strong as that from left, right. You can't almost get it. They're all coming at you. Mm-hmm. And you feel alive, and you can actually, your fingers are just racing across the keys to capture it all. Can you see that?
Yes. And
okay. Is that picture far away or close?
It's very close.
Okay. I want you to bring it. Is it colorful or dark? Darker?
Medium.
Okay. When you repeat this visualization after we've done this, mm-hmm. you want to keep working on bringing it closer and brighter and more colorful. It has to be alive. And the more alive mm-hmm. it becomes, the more centered it becomes in your brain. What you're doing is right now you think about, I have to get, you can open your eyes now, but
thank you.
You're thinking about, I have to get this done.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I have to get this done. Where are you focusing? You're focusing on not getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
You need to focus on getting it done and making that picture more powerful. You have to actually look at not the getting it done, but it's already done and how good that makes you feel. And that will begin to get your brain to motivate you.
Thank you.
Oh, Lord.
Bert, you raised your hand, so go ahead and you have a question?
Yeah, I'm relative to the list where you write on your whiteboard, I just want to comment, is when I have those kinds of things that are on my list, I find if I work on them right away, I tend to be ready, fire, aim. I don't think them out well enough. And ironically, a lot of the times that night in my sleep, I wake up at 3 in the morning, knowing the answers, knowing the way, knowing everything. I get up, I write it all down, and then I go back to sleep. How does that fit into that pattern?
Well, it actually fits in the path very well. Remember, I told you that your brain organizes in the background, and you are unaware that that's going on. I will give you a story from when I was in college, and I took any job I could. And at one point, I was reconciling checks that came in at night for processing in a bank. And we'd have batch of checks, and sometimes they wouldn't balance. And over, everybody on the crew had this experience. We would put it in suspense for 24 hours. We would go home. We would be thinking about it before we went to bed. And in the morning, we knew where the difference was. Yes. Because your brain will organize things in the background.
Right.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Bert?
Yeah.
Claudette, you should come up or help me with my books because they're always
Well, and you've written an excellent book on SMART goals, but the problem with SMART goals is that the assumption is that's where you start, and you really have to start with the why and the focusing on developing your belief system and your emotional investment.
Well, I don't see any other questions in the group chat. Josie, did you look like you had a question at one point? You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you have yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I wanted to ask Claudette. Claudette, I'm sort of on the edge of understanding what belief really means. I don't have a lot of beliefs, but I have a tremendous number of feelings. Are feelings the same as beliefs?
Yes and no. It depends on how you're talking about beliefs and feelings. You have to be emotionally invested, and we would call that feelings. That's why people say you have to be passionate about something, or when somebody's passionate about something, they get across. They're very emotionally invested. But the other thing about that is you can be passionate about something and not believe you can do it. I can be passionate about being a runway model. You've all met me. I never hit 5 feet. So I'm not going to be a runway model, correct? Okay. Correct. I can be really passionate about it and have feelings about it, but I don't believe that I can be a runway model, and that's probably pretty accurate too. So your belief and your emotional investment are really separate. You have to believe you can do it. Once you believe you can do something, you can do it. Remember, my sister was a top-notch gymnast, but because she didn't believe it, her body did the wrong thing at the last minute, and her brain made her do it. And she didn't tuck and roll. She just slid down the mat, causing herself some physical harm. So beliefs and emotions are different. You have to believe in yourself. But I've met you, Josephine. I do think you believe in yourself.
It makes me think how often those of us that have been athletes in the past have choked at key points of our athletic careers.
And a lot of athletes now do practice a lot of this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's so critical.
It is critical. You have to have your mind in the right place because your brain can accomplish me. There is a story I like to tell. Let's say you have a cold and you've worked a hard day and you go home and you're dragging and all you can think of is getting to bed. And your friend calls you and you've always wanted to do a tandem jump. She goes, I've got free tickets, but we have to use them tonight. There are proven studies that show all of a sudden your stuffy nose goes away. All of a sudden you're ready to go. You're not tired anymore. What does that? Your brain.
Patricia has a question. She's asking about where does being realistic come into this? For example, a runway model. So
okay, that's a really good question. And your SMART goals do cover that. But I think that when you, for instance, if I wanted, remember in the why questions is there another way to get this? If I wanted to be a runway model, why did I want to be a runway model? I didn't, by the way, but if I did, why do I want to be a runway model? Maybe I wanted the people to adore me the way they do. Maybe I wanted to be the focus of attention. There are other ways I can get that. And so you do need to be realistic. SMART goals tells us that. And I wouldn't presuppose above that. But when you do the why questions, you'll find out that being a runway model isn't exactly what you wanted. People come and tell me they want, some clients, they want $50,000 or $100,000 in the bank. They don't want $100,000 in the bank. They want what it will do for them. And sometimes, often, there's another way to get what they want to do. So for instance, if I wanted to be a model, I could then, under my why questions, discover that I could be, you don't have to be tall to be, you know, a model for things, bracelets or jewelry or shoes. So there are ways to accomplish what you want. You just need to be realistic about it. Yes. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Patricia, you good with that?
Patricia?
Yes. That was a great answer. Why? Yes.
Why? Just like any 3-year-old will tell you.
Well, you know, we could go on with this line of questions because it's like, this is a great topic and I'm fascinated by it, and it never loses interest for me personally, because I mean, all of us are surrounded by this all the time. You know, how we think about ourselves, our self-talk, you know, confidence. You know, how do you exude confidence in the right way so that you're projecting it, but you're not exuding, you know, arrogance. You know, there's a difference.
We tell children to be confident, but we don't teach them how. This kind of, the things that I mentioned today, and by the way, things you can do with the brain are a lot bigger than what I discussed today. But on this focus even, we should teach these in school.
Yeah,
we should enable our children to be successful, because all of the other studies fall by the wayside if they don't know how to be successful for themselves.
Wow. Well, that's a great note, and that's, I think, a great place for us to end today's meeting. Claudette, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing. And Claudette's a member of the group. If anyone wants to get in touch with her, you can do that offline. So thank you. I'd like to just call the Golden Gate Breakfast Club meeting today to a close. And everyone have a great week, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Don't forget George.